Sharzad. Wow. Well, my goodness. Thank you everyone for joining me. This is my very first IG Live. I wanted to kind of just get live on camera, answer some questions, and shed some light on a few things that people have been asking about, and hey Monica, and clear things up. Hey Sanj. Thanks for joining. I guess maybe more people will join, so I'll just start off telling a little bit of background about me and just the history of TempStars and that sort of thing, and then we can get into the questions. I'll just maybe 5 minutes in so that people have a chance to join for that. So yeah, just a bit about me. I'm a practicing dentist, graduated U of T 99, so it's been 22 years now, and I still practice out of Waypoint Center for Mental Health, and the rest of the time I am growing TempStars. And so the way that it kind of unfolded from the beginning, back in 2015, I kind of came up with the idea for some sort of app that allows dental offices to connect directly with dental hygienists, just for temping. And that was kind of the original idea, just based on a pain point I was currently having. And I thought, well, there has to be a way to do this on your phone. And so I just literally went to Staples and I got some grid paper and some pencil crayons and started sketching out screens. And that was even before Uber had sort of come to our area. And I hadn't even heard of Uber, but it seemed as I was describing it to people that, oh, sounds like it's kind of like Uber, but for dental offices and hygienists. And the original version of TempStars was just temping and just for dental hygienists, because that was kind of the main thing that I was struggling with. And so I wanted to kind of come up with a solution that allowed, at the time, dental hygienists to live sort of this empowered professional life, have flexibility with their schedules, and then at the same time kind of help dental office managers and dentists relieve that stress I would feel if I got a text message at 4 a.m. saying, oh, I can't come in for my shift, and scrambling around and that sort of thing. So that really set me on a journey for the last 6.5 years of learning and building and growing and all of those things. And, fast forward to now, when we have over 10,000 dental hygienists and dental assistants using our service in over 4,000 dental offices across Canada. And we've recently launched into the United States. So we're in 7 or 8 markets in the United States, and that's going well. We were getting a lot of requests to come to the United States as we were, I guess, becoming noticed in Canada. We would get people reaching out to us from the United States saying, hey, when are you coming to this when are you coming to our town or to our city, or that sort of thing. So that was kind of the background of the whole thing. In the beginning, it was just me and a coder. I taught myself full stack web development, UI, UX design, database architecture, that sort of thing. But it was just me and a coder kind of building this thing. And I was doing all the customer support from my laptop. And I really wouldn't drive more than 15 minutes on the highway. I'd constantly be pulling over on the highway, tether my phone to my laptop and answer emails and things like that. So it was really humble beginnings. And Holly was the first one to join the team, and she and I would meet at the library in Port Hope to get work done. And so they were really fun times and really humble beginnings, and a really fun way to start things. And now we're to, I guess, 6 of us full time, including myself on the team, and a handful of sort of agencies or freelancers or that sort of thing to fill in the team. So that's kind of how we've kind of come to where we are now. And as we start to grow and as we start to get more and more, I guess, impact and influence on the dental community and the dental job market, we really take it seriously what our commitment is to dental professionals, to dentists, to dental office managers, hygienists, dental assistants, everybody involved in the community. And our whole team is talking about it all the time, about how can we be improving our service, and what did a support ticket would come in, and we discuss it and say, oh yeah, maybe we should do something about that to solve that. So part of this is, and I really appreciate anybody, and we got quite a few questions, who took the time to submit questions, and also for joining in on this call, because it's just nice to kind of maybe clarify some things, or there has been a couple of themes that we sort of see on social media or we get support tickets about, and I just thought now's a good time to kind of answer some questions, but also get some feedback and find out what other future improvements we should be focusing on. We've got a roadmap longer than my arm of things we're going to be building into the service, but at the same time, as much as we have a set roadmap, we are constantly adjusting that roadmap based on things we hear. So we're very dynamically responsive to support tickets, social media, that sort of thing. So everybody who's taken time to kind of send us an email or to comment about things on social media. We really do listen, and it makes an impact and really helps to improve TempStars for everyone. So really, thank you for all that too. All right, so I got my notes here and some questions. And one of the themes of the questions was, how do we sort of manage the community of dental offices, hygienists, and assistants, and that sort of thing? So there's going to be a link to this chart in our bio in Instagram. And what it does, it's just a neat flow chart that explains how and the ways that we have different membership statuses for dental offices and for hygienists and assistant members and all of those sorts of things. And I'll go into that a little bit more because there were a lot of questions about that. So it's probably a good time to just kind of clarify that sort of thing. Okay, great. Thanks, Holly. And yeah, please, the thing that makes me probably favors me in dentistry is not so great at doing Instagram Live, being I'm a very focused person. And so I might have a hard time following people's comments and doing this, but I'll try to glance down. I'm going to try to leave some time at the end to answer some actual specific questions that are kind of set in the chat. And maybe Holly, if there's some key questions that come in, maybe just send me a message on Slack and I'll see the little bing up and I'll save some time, or maybe kind of just trickle them in throughout the live. All right, well, let's just start off with the biggest theme, and the one we got the most questions about was how and what and why does TempStars care so much about managing who uses TempStars? And I can just give you a little bit of a background. So early on, when we were first getting up and going, you know, all you do when you build an app is you want the thing to work. And then after it works, you want a bunch of people to use it. But then we really started to grow quickly, and we realized we really needed to take seriously how dental offices were providing temping experience for hygienists and assistants. We wanted to be aware of and eliminate offices who were providing kind of these negative or toxic experiences to people who would be going in there to work for the day. And at the same time, for dental offices, we needed a way to ensure that the temping experience that the dental offices were having with the hygienists and assistants being placed through TempStars was consistently excellent. So early on, we had no way of knowing or managing that. We would sometimes just find out, oh, this person canceled a bunch of shifts and the office was upset a bunch of times, and okay, well, we better not have that person on our system anymore. So eventually it got to the point where we have enough data. I mean, we're approaching 100,000 temping shifts completed. We're not there yet, but it won't be long before we'll have completed 100,000 temping shifts with all of these thousands of dental offices and thousands of assistants and hygienists. And I really thought about it from a standpoint of a hygienist or a dental assistant. Well, what is their best and most perfect temping experience? Well, they want to be treated well, and they don't want the office canceling their shift bookings. They want to get paid on time. They want to make sure they're going into a safe environment that's following proper infection control protocols and those sorts of things. And so we have statistics in our database from all of these things. We know which offices are getting 5-star ratings versus 2-star ratings. We know which offices are canceling shifts. We know which offices are paying on time and that sort of thing. On the other side of things, similar with hygienists and dental assistants, we know the numbers and statistics of cancellations and reliability and 5-star ratings and 2-star ratings. So if I just start talking about, let's say, hygienists and dental assistants, well, we know that dental offices want someone who's reliable, meaning they're going to show up on time for their shift, but also that they're going to have such an experience with that person, they'll give that person a 5-star rating. So then I literally exported an entire database of tens of thousands of shifts and hygienists and assistants and combed through this giant database and sorted and filtered and did math on it and said, okay, well, it turns out the top 20th percentile of hygienists and assistants who use our system, who have completed dozens, if not hundreds of shifts, have 0 cancellations. They've never canceled a shift. And that's many, many, many hygienists and assistants who have never canceled a shift. And at the same time, that same group, in terms of the percentage of 5-star ratings, they get at least 80% 5-star ratings. So then we thought, okay, well, here's our pro and elite status designations. They're the ones who are in the top 20th percentile of not canceling shifts and receiving 5-star ratings. And so that's sort of how we assign these kind of pro and elite status badges is after 5 and 10 completed shifts, if you have a certain percentage of track record of reliability and 5-star ratings, that assigns the badge. But the same analysis showed the bottom 15th percentile, so the least reliable and lowest percentage of 5-star ratings and highest percentage of 2-star ratings, was showing that if you get, and I don't remember the exact number, but let's say if you get more than 10% 3-star ratings and you've canceled more than, I think it's 10% of shifts, and if you've received less than 60% 5-star ratings, well, that statistically is in the bottom 15%. And so we use that to give people a little bit of a heads up to say, oh, we have to put your account on limited status because your track record is showing you're not getting consistently great feedback, which is the reputation of TempStars members, and also the cancellation rate for your booked shifts is higher than normal. So we're going to limit your account for now so that you can kind of reestablish your track record of reliability, 5-star ratings, and all of that sort of thing, and that way get back up to active and then earn pro and then elite status. And the people who we end up, and it's not very many, but people who sometimes we put them on this temporary limited status, but they just keep canceling or consistently get 2-star ratings and negative feedback from offices. Well, we have to say, well, you're not a fit for TempStars. We have this sort of reputation that we have to protect for reliability and excellence, and we've given this opportunity, but we've had to deactivate your account. Now, I'll tell you the reason we do that, and we do this for dental offices as well, and that's an important point. We manage and groom sort of our dental office membership the same way that we do with hygienists and assistants. If there's an office who's getting a ton of 2-star feed ratings, or they're not paying on time, or they're canceling shifts, they don't belong on TempStars because, and here's really what it boils down to as a concept. If a hygienist or a dental assistant goes into an office and there's a bad experience, or maybe the person no-shows for the shift, or they're just 2-star ratings, something like that. Well, it could be a bad match, and that's why we don't make any decisions based on sort of one instance. But you can imagine if the office says, oh, TempStars is terrible because I had this terrible experience, and that office says, I'm not using TempStars anymore. The problem is that affects every other person who might have booked shifts there or gotten a job there through TempStars, for any future hygienist or assistant who trusts us and relies on us for their livelihood to support themselves and their family. And so we just can't have offices having this bad experience because it limits the availability of temping shifts for other hygienists and assistants who want it. And similarly, we don't really have any tolerance for dental offices who are providing these bad temping experiences, because if a really great hygienist or assistant goes in, has a bad experience and says, oh, TempStars is placing people in these horrible offices, I don't want to be working with TempStars anymore. Well, that affects every other dental office who would otherwise have booked that great hygienist or assistant for a shift. And so we take that equally seriously. So we're just constantly sort of analyzing and making adjustments to our membership for these different statuses to make sure that we're providing the best and most consistent experience for hygienists and assistants and for dental offices who are booking them. And I can tell you, when we implemented this new system, and it was, I'm going to say, maybe a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit longer, the percentage of 5-star ratings overall of that hygienists and assistants were reporting for their experiences at dental offices and what dental offices were reporting for the experiences with the hygienists and assistants, it immediately jumped 18%. It went from 72% to 90% within a week. And it's because we just realize we have to take this really seriously and really make sure we're providing consistently excellent temping experience, and it had a huge impact on the satisfaction of the people who were using TempStars. So we really do stand by that. There were some questions about, oh, well, aren't there real people behind this? And I can tell you 100%, we use automation and algorithms and data as a tool, but it's only a tool for people who are managing and running this. And we never, ever blindly set up any kind of data thing without watching it and first doing it manually to say, okay, well, we've been doing this manually for 6 months. These are the decisions we're making. This is how we're making these decisions. How can we automate it with a tool in a way that allows it to be managed more consistently, but at the same time, we watch everything that our sort of algorithms and our nightly, we have this algorithm that runs at night called the Gardener. And so it kind of analyzes everybody's statistics and that sort of thing, and we get the results every morning, and we go over them and we say, oh, okay, this person's status changed. Was it supposed to change? And that sort of thing. So there might have been some perception, just based on the questions, maybe there were some people who are thinking that we just blindly run the system with a computer, but we don't. It's just a tool that helps us scale, because when you think of the size of our membership, And we're just a team of, well, we have 2 full-time support people, Diane and Mary, and Lucy's our member support manager. And then it's Holly, who is our head of member experience, and Jen, who is our director of growth marketing, and myself. And so to manage that size of a membership and consistently provide great experiences takes some automation to be able to lean on. Not blindly, but we have to use it as a tool so that we can still consistently provide those experiences. All right, let me just check my notes here. Garner and Hannah, support team, flowchart, statuses are determined. Oh yeah, we do have, and it's not an uncommon way. If somebody has their account deactivated, there is a path back to getting your account activated, and it involves a charity donation. And I came up with the idea a few years ago of, well, what if somebody had their account deactivated because they were canceling a bunch of shifts, but now they want back on, which is perfectly fine. And believe me, I'm a huge advocate for people's ability to sort of change or improve or evolve, or their life situations to change. So I understand that, and our team understands that, and we just needed a path to allow people to get back on without taking advantage of us. So we said, well, what if somebody makes a donation to a charity? We don't take any money from the charity. We don't get a percentage of it or anything, but to me, and for us, it's a win because, one, the money goes to a worthwhile organization, and we don't even dictate what charity. We have some suggestions, but if somebody has a favorite charity, make the donation and send us the receipt, you're back in. But so these worthwhile organizations are getting charitable donations. The person who's making the donation is getting back on our system and being able to book shifts and earn income and that sort of thing. And for us, it's a gesture of how serious they are about keeping their future commitments. And so that's a little system we built in. And again, we stand by it. It works well. And for us, it allows that path in a completely unselfish way. We're not going to ask any hygienists or assistants to pay us money to get back on our system, but that gesture to make sure that nobody's taking advantage of the situation and in making the gesture to the charitable organization is a great path back onto reactivating your account. And as with everything I'm about to say and have said, everything that's great about TempStars comes from people's feedback and the things we hear and how we respond to them. So we're not a stiff corporate organization that doesn't continually work on and improve how we're operating. So everything I'm saying now, it's our best way of solving these problems. But again, we're always talking about it when we're having our meetings and things come up and we're discussing support tickets and things like that. We're very responsive to adjusting our service in a way that is continually improving. So that's kind of community management. I will say, if there's a question I didn't get to, and I think I got to most of them in that theme, but certainly if you can find a way to, I guess, submit a question either to our support team or something, we'll do a blog post of unanswered questions. If you happen to ask a question during this Instagram Live that I didn't see in the chat, I don't know, maybe send it on Instagram or to our support team. We'll do a blog post of maybe questions that we didn't get to during the Ask Me Anything thing. Like now, where's it going? And I'm really proud of how our team responded to the rodeo that was COVID in the dental industry. I mean, there's no other better word for it. It was just a rodeo because first you've got that those 2 guidelines that come out, and then the kind of frustrated feelings that went with that, with dentists having one and hygienists having another sometimes, and the discussions that went on there, and then all of the constant stress and anxiety that went around with just a pandemic going on, and then dental offices donating all their PPE to the frontline workers who needed it, but then dental offices are opening back up and we need PPE, and then there's a big shortage, and it was just a big rodeo. So one of the things that is special about TempStars is that we listen and respond quickly. Because I have a direct line of communication, I'm reasonably technical, and I build our own prototypes and things like that. So we have a meeting, we say, okay, this is going on, we better fix it this way. And I build a prototype, we talk about it, we test it, we code it, and then we release it. I think during COVID, we probably released 8 to 10 updates, and some of them were by the week because new information would come in, we're like, we have to change it now to make it do this. there's really, even in Silicon Valley, that kind of turnaround is rare. So I'm really proud of how our team responds, listens, and just really dynamically we're building solutions into the way the application works. So one of the early things on was that dental offices check off what PPE they can and will provide and what they've got in stock. And then for a shift posting, at least as a hygienist or assistant, you've got that visible, so you can kind of make a decision about what they've got going on there. The other thing that is coming down the road a bit is that whole idea of vaccines. And, we get a lot of questions about, is that hygienist vaccinated? We have a dental office might have a policy saying we require everyone to show proof of vaccination to work at our office. And so we have a really big release coming up in, fingers crossed, the next week or two. And that will have built into it the ability for a posting dental office to say whether or not they require proof of full vaccination for a temping shift. And same for our job board if they're posting a job for hiring. So then as a hygienist or assistant, you'll see that as a symbol on the posting, and it will say, this office requires that you show proof of full vaccination upon arrival at the office. And if you're booking the shift and you don't have it, you'll be sent home. And so one of the themes and one of our philosophies is not to corral or coerce people into a certain behavior, but it's to make things as transparent as possible so that everyone can make informed decisions. So we're not going to impose on every office that we say, oh, you have to, or you can't, or those sorts of things. And we're not going to tell every hygienist or a dental assistant who uses TempStars, oh, you have to be vaccinated to use TempStars. But because there's such a mix, and there's such a mix of feelings about it. But if a dental office says, yes, as a policy, we required proof of double vaccination to work at our office for all of our staff sort of thing, well, then that's known during that posting thing. The person who's going to book that shift has to confirm that, yes, they do have that proof. They do agree to show it when they show up for the shift. So that's kind of the first iteration of how we're taking a pass at it, of just making sure that things are transparent, that the office is posting the accurate information about whether or not they require it. And then for a confirmation on the side of the dental hygienist or dental assistant to say, yes, I'm ready and able to do that. And then if they're not, that's perfectly okay. And then they just don't book those shifts where the office requires it. I have a feeling, and if anyone is not double vaccinated, I think it feels like it's going to be a trend because we've been watching it and we weren't doing anything about it. And then it seems like it's going in that direction. So that's why we kind of built in this first iteration of how it's going to go. And again, TempStars will not, I think I can say this safely. I can't see a future where we're ever requiring anyone to be double vaccinated unless it was, a legal requirement. But I can see a future where if you are not ready to show that, your opportunities for temping or working in dental offices will be reduced. So even just based on that, it's probably a good idea if you're not to get that. July of last year, when offices started to open back up. Now, and I did a few posts about this at the time. So what happened, offices start to open back up. There's a huge shortage of hygienists and assistants. And some, and 100%, maybe a minority of people, certainly not the majority, but there was a lot of hourly rate, what really could only objectively be called gouging. Dental assistants and dental hygienists were asking for just objectively exorbitant rates because knowing that there was a shortage, I might be able to get this, which is fine. And honestly, I built TempStars with a free market concept of ask whatever you want. And if someone's willing to pay it, that's fantastic. But that was how it was originally built. You could just pick any rate you want and it's up to the office to accept or decline it. And I still believe in that, but we had to add guardrails because what was happening was these exorbitant rates were damaging the community to everyone because those who were doing it were getting offices very angry with us and they would say, we're not using TempStars anymore, which then reduces the number of offices available for those who are asking for, the reasonable rates and things like that. So we just added guardrails to it. So now there's, the office has the ability to propose an hourly rate. And so you'll know the proposed hourly rate is a recommended rate. And there's still a range to pick in. We added a few guardrails. Pro and elite status have a bit of a wider range in the hourly rates. New grads have a slightly reduced range in the hourly rates, things like that. But we just couldn't wash our hands of the fact that there was just some people out there that were really unfairly gouging dental offices. And we had to set that up. So that was a result of COVID. That was a result of the job market at the time. But at the same time, believe me, if you're in Ontario, I remember, and it was probably 10 years ago when there was, maybe 15, there was an oversupply of dental hygienists because of the private dental hygiene schools and all of these graduates. And there were, same situation, but there were dental offices taking advantage of the dental hygienist oversupply. I personally never. We always paid the professional and going rates and paid well for anybody we hired on. But there were stories of dental offices just offering, in the mid to low 20s, which was at the time, of course, below what those rates should have been for dental hygienists. And if we were looking for hygienists, I would post the job out, and by the time I got home from the office, there'd be 400 applicants. But we still always found the best and paid well for it. But so it seems like it's gone the other way, where dentists, some dental offices were happy when there was a lot of hygienists and they could offer low rates, and now it's kind of swung the other way. But at the same time, I don't think dental offices should have been doing that either. I think everybody kind of should be fair about what the job market is about and what it's offering. And so I'm just going to check. Holly sent a quick message here. Sorry. She's confused. Why should any dental... Yeah, so that's a good point and a good question. So early on, and thanks for that question. So Holly just let me know about your question. So early on, and legitimately true, was one of our marketing messages was you can earn more with TempStars, which was just objectively true because it's common to know that if you're picking up temping shifts, the hourly rates tend to be a bit higher than if you are hired to an office. And so that really helped us scale up and worked. And in a pre-COVID environment, everything was fine because the job market was normal. So that was just a normal marketing message. But we realized that as COVID was coming and the job market was changing and the rates were going up and things like that, we realized that as a marketing message was kind of tone deaf. And so we've really kind of removed that from our marketing messages because we don't want to be the ones who are saying we're driving up, or that like you said, that dental hygienists should ask for extremely high rates. Which is a good point because I was going to touch on this too. So I can understand your frustration with that. Now, what is true, and I know this to be true, and I think I did a blog post or a video about it as well for dental offices. So TempStars, it's easy to see TempStars being more noticeable and at the same time see hourly rates going up. And there is a sort of correlation, causality, misperception going on because TempStars right now is operating in an environment where all hourly rates are going up for dental hygienists, for dental assistants, for restaurant workers, for construction workers, for everyone. The entire job market hourly rate from a supply and demand side is going up significantly. And I can understand if you tack that onto some of our previous marketing messages that we phased out about earn more with TempStars, I can see how that would come across a little bit sour. But we're not driving up the hourly rates and we're not even incentivizing people to ask for higher rates. But what we are doing is removing friction in the job market and making it easier for people to connect. And so the hourly rates that you'll see on TempStars are a reflection of the job market and the supply and demand, but it's not driving it up. And you'd wonder, well, how do I know that to be the case? Well, as we expand, there's a lot of markets that have never even heard of TempStars, of course. And so we reach out, and anytime we're going into a new market, we just make some phone calls, do some introductions, meet with some dental office managers, dentists, and everybody like that. And no matter where we call in all over North America, not just Canada, not just Ontario, all over North America, everywhere, we can't believe how much it's costing per hour for hygienists and assistants. Those rates have gone up significantly. It's so hard to hire somebody. And it's just the overall job market. And I think it has to do with COVID and maybe people being reluctant maybe to go back to work. And hopefully people are feeling better and safer about that. But it's that we're just operating, TempStars as a company is operating in that environment where hourly rates are going up and we're just facilitating the matches. And again, we've phased out the marketing messages about earn more with TempStars because as we listen, we think that is a little bit tone deaf in light of the current job market situation and the frustrations for some of these hourly rates going up as well. And so I hope that helps address it because I do know, and believe me, I'm a practicing dentist. I've owned 2 dental practices, and TempStars and our decisions live in a natural tension of every dentist and office manager in dental office wanting the best possible hygienist or assistant for as little as possible. And then we have hygienists and assistants, good, professional, reliable, skilled hygienists and assistants wanting to earn a respectable hourly rate to be able to support themselves and their family and earn a good living. And so we live in that tension, and we know that. And we're always trying to kind of it's like a little puzzle. We're trying to figure it out. Well, how do we make those matches? How do we make it in a way that addresses the business needs of a dental office and their payroll needs and things like that, but at the same time offer that empowerment and the lifestyle of 2 hygienists and assistants? So do we always get it perfect? No. Are we always talking about it and figuring out ways to do it better and better? Absolutely. So the idea of the comment that went up there, but about bite the hand. We're not biting the hand that feeds us. We're just trying to operate within that tension in a way that satisfies both of those needs. And it's a balancing act. And we are talking about it. We're figuring out ways to improve our system constantly, but that's kind of how that's working. I hope that helps address the question. So COVID, the impact on the dental job market, hourly rates. Yep. All right. So now, right, so I saw your question there. Now, when you see, I'll just give some context to that. The reason that those are there as indicators, so just to add some context, and especially if you're a hygienist or assistant listening and wondering how a dentist posts a shift. So similar to the way a hygienist or assistant uses it, it's a scroller wheel, and the scroller wheel is colored. Now, again, using the data of all these geographic areas, postal codes, zip codes, and knowing what the hourly rates are in those areas, we know not guessing, we know down to the penny what the average hourly rate is for that area for shifts. And so when you see that recommended amount, as a dentist, when you're posting your proposed rate, you can pick anything you want, but you need to know that if you're picking something that's very low, there's a chance it's not going to you won't get offers for it. So again, it's the flexibility with guidelines and some kind of guardrails, but you can certainly pick the lowest rate. And if it's out there and a hygienist sees and says, well, I would prefer a few dollars more than that, and they send in an offer for a few dollars more, it does give you the option you can still decline it to say that's above our budget and then send back a counter proposed rate. So that is there. If you get, and I just added this to help clarify this too, if you get an offer as a dental office, if you get an offer from a dental hygienist or a dental assistant, you'll see the hourly rate, but now it says, if you have questions about the hourly rate, check out the video below. So that video below kind of walks through how it looks like from both sides and how that proposed rate anchors the hourly rates on the other side, but still allowing that market flexibility so that our pro and elite status or consistently professional, reliable, skilled hygienists and assistants have that ability to earn higher rates. But again, even there's guardrails on there because I really feel strongly about open market, but guardrails and guidelines and things like that. So that's really what we're trying to do as we're kind of managing and listening to how everyone's feeling about how we're managing that. And we've made changes. And like I said, one of the reasons I'm doing this is so that I can get some feedback and so that you can kind of see how we're working now, because it's easy to have misconceptions and misperceptions about what's going on behind the scenes with TempStars and why are they doing this thing. And I think part of it is there's a default sentiment to quote unquote temping agencies or employment agencies that's a little bit cynical and a little bit jaded. And we're kind of working against that. We know that that's kind of the default thing where, you just make money off of people and don't care about that kind of thing. And admittedly, there must be services out there that are like that, but we're different and we listen carefully and we're constantly adjusting. And again, we don't favor or serve one side or the other. We favor and serve the entire community of dental professionals and dental offices and dental office owners and managers. And we're always trying to work within that tension and figure out a way that makes it still fast, easy, reliable, consistent, have great temping experiences from both sides. So I think I'm just going to go through, what time is it? I'm going to go through a couple of just actual questions that I've got here that people submitted. So thanks for submitting all these questions. Some of them I just kind of compressed into things I've already said as themes, but there's some actual questions here. Okay, so question about insert. We are going to post this. I mean, if you're just joining now, I think what we're going to end up doing is, well, I get to save the video on my phone, and so we'll probably make a YouTube video for it, maybe with timestamps too, with the themes, so you can kind of skip ahead to certain questions or themes if you've missed it, that kind of thing. We had a question from a dentist and asking about refunding a joining fee. So we're going to follow up about that. It's Dr. Nicole. So, and this is a nice little segue into, like, how does TempStars work and make money and that sort of thing. So we, first of all, we have our temping fee that gets paid by dental offices. I have a fundamental feeling about business that we should not be collecting money until after we've provided value. So we don't charge anything to join. We don't charge anything to post a shift. We don't charge anybody to hire. So if you have a hygienist or an assistant who works at your office and you love them and you're like, we need somebody for 3 days a week, do you want to join? You can just hire them. You don't have to tell us. You don't have to pay us. We're just happy to make a good connection that way. So really it's just our temping fee and our job board. It's free to post. It's free to hire somebody. We just have a small $18 fee if a candidate applies for your job and you want to view that candidate's resume, then it's $18. But before you decide to view that person's resume, we have a little recommendation engine that uses our data to give a recommendation score about how likely you would be to be happy with that person if you hired them, which is unique in the industry. There's no other company in North America that has that recommendation engine based on real data. And then you see like graduation year and how far from your office and things like that. So you can kind of make a bit of an informed decision based on the candidate about whether or not you want to view that person's resume. And again, sometimes somebody views a resume, a dental office pays the $18 to view the resume, and then the person doesn't call them back and there was no value that, well, we just refund it. So we're not out to kind of collect money before we've actually provide value for what we're doing. And so that was just the question. So she's asking about a $48 fee, which our placement fee is $47. Yeah, good question. Okay, thanks, Holly. So if it was 40, our placement fee is 47. So she might be asking about a placement fee. Maybe they booked a temping shift. But if you're listening, Dr. Nicole, we'll email you back about that. But there's no joining fee. There's nothing to refund for joining or using TempStars. Question about, are we active in Pennsylvania? Yes, that was one of our early launch. Philadelphia and Pittsburgh were two of our early launch cities, and we're really gaining some good traction there. We have over 100 hygienists and assistants joined there so far, and we're doing promotions to dental offices as well. So if you're listening from Pennsylvania, it's early days, but we're starting to kind of get that spark going for the network effect there. So stay tuned. But yes, we're active in Pennsylvania. So there's a question about, what are you doing about hygienists or dental assistants canceling the day of? Which exceptionally rare and something we take very, very seriously. And so just going back to the community management standpoint, we know that if somebody doesn't show up or short notice cancels for a shift, we do take into consideration a person's track record. So if they've completed 100 shifts, 80% 5-star ratings, never canceled a shift before, but they were in a car accident or something happened. Well, we're not going to kick the person off our system for that. But if it's somebody who is, that's their they've canceled or they've no-showed or things like that, especially, and if you're new to TempStars, those early shifts really, really matter of establishing a track record of, getting positive feedback and not canceling shifts. So we do take it seriously. People who no-show for shifts, they're off. Unless there's something, if they're able to explain or there's a doctor's note they can supply us with. But believe me, I've run 2 dental practices. I know it's a complete disaster if you've got patients waiting, you've got a full schedule, and you're waiting for a hygienist to show up or a dental assistant to show up and they're not there. So that's something we take really seriously. It's exceptionally rare, so that's good, but still, that's not any consolation to somebody that it happens to. So yeah, we do manage that and take that very seriously. And, there was a question or a comment about the perception of maybe a dental hygienist or a dental assistant working a temping shift, but having no accountability. They just go in, do whatever they want to do, get paid for their hours and leave, but they don't have any long-term accountability to that office and to those patients, and did they do good provide good care and all of those sorts of things. And TempStars tends to add as we grow and our membership expands, and people are relying on us more and more, we tend to add that layer of accountability to how people are conducting themselves. Dental offices as well. And so it's just that little extra layer of we're able to kind of manage and protect and grow our membership in a way that adds that little layer of accountability to how people are conducting themselves. And again, dental offices, office managers, dentists alike, and hygienists and assistants alike. We care about everybody, and that's kind of how we manage those things. So arrival time. When you see a shift posted as a hygienist, and even as a posting dentist, you got to pick the arrival time. And this is something early days, we wrestled this back and forth. So does the dentist put start time? And so the dentist puts start time, and then the person shows up at the start time, but the patient's already waiting in the chair. And so, or the dental office says, well, I put start time, but I needed them there 20 minutes. Why weren't they there 20 minutes early for unpaid time to get ready? And so I feel, and what we just landed on was the dental office should post the time that they want the person to arrive. And there's a pop-up. And so hygienists and assistants, just be aware that when a dental office is posting arrival time, it specifically says, put the time that you want the person to arrive ready to work at your office, not the time of your first patient. And if you put the time of the first patient as the arrival time, you can't expect that person there before that. And so the hygienist or assistant could end up feeling a little flat-footed at the beginning of the day because they just show up at the time they're supposed to arrive. As a hygienist or assistant, you can show, if you have the confirmation thing and the office manager says, where were you? Your first patient's waiting. You can say, look, you told me to arrive at 9 o'clock. I'm here ready to work at 9 o'clock. Because for my office, we always booked the hygienist or assistant 30 minutes early, and it was paid time. Because we didn't want anyone scrambling around. It doesn't even look good for our patients and the rest of the team, and we didn't want the person stressed out. So prep time should be paid time, and that's what we landed on. So if you need the person there 15 minutes early to go over charts or get things ready, that sort of thing, or prep the room, that sort of thing, well, you just put arrive at what time you want them to arrive to give them that buffer to get ready. There was a couple of questions just about employment things, and just to clarify. Now, we got a good email support ticket today that was asking a question about independent. This is from the United States, about independent contractors versus employees and things like that. So the summary of what my response to that was, and kind of the way that we're operating is, we don't employ hygienists and dental assistants. We're kind of, not really, but imagine we're like a classified ads or like Kijiji or something, but just really, really niche and customized and specialized for that connection. And so we don't cajole anyone to going to shifts. We don't dictate what somebody's hourly rate has to be. It is the dental office saying, I'm looking for someone, and then the hygienist or assistant saying, okay, I can work that. Here's my hourly rate. Here's my resume. Do you want to hire me for that day? Yes or no? And yes, okay, then you worked. I can tell you the vast, vast, vast majority of dental offices pay the hygienists and assistants as independent contractors, and the vast, vast, vast majority of dental hygienists and assistants are happy to be paid as independent contractors. And for my offices, we went that route too, and we didn't run into any problems. There's certainly tax laws and there's specific criteria that dictate what an independent contractor is. And there are some offices who say, no, we consider them a one-day temporary employee. We need the social insurance or social security number. We do payroll, we withhold taxes, that sort of thing. It's the minority, but it's a legitimate thing. And some of the larger corporations, of course, they want to make sure they're not running into any tax problems. And so some of them handle it that way. We haven't yet, but even just, again, that based on that email, we're listening and brainstorming, thinking, well, maybe for dental offices, there should be a little checkbox that says we consider a temporary hygienist for one day as a temporary employee or as an independent contractor. And again, not to tell people what to do, but to offer that transparency so that a hygienist or assistant booking the shift can then look and say, oh, okay, this office would consider me a temporary employee. They would withhold taxes. That's fine. And send in an offer. Or, oh, independent contractor, that's fine. But at least that way there's no surprises or misunderstandings that way. I guess I could talk about a couple things about, well, maybe one more thing about COVID. So we don't do temping shifts for receptionists. This question is, how come TempStars doesn't do receptionist temping shifts? That was a personal choice, because when I was thinking about, if my office manager or hygiene coordinator was off sick, do I want somebody that I don't know who doesn't have necessarily objective license qualifications coming to the office or answering phone or collecting money or things like that? And just personally, I wasn't comfortable with that, and I never did book any temporary receptionists or anything like that for my office. If one of them was sick, we would just kind of cover it and make do. I guess that's really what it boils down to. Is there's certainly courses and college courses and qualifications for dental reception and office or medical receptionist, things like that. But I just didn't feel comfortable doing it, because I just didn't want that person who really anybody, they wouldn't have to have a license, could go in, be completely unqualified, steal some money or something like that. I didn't feel comfortable with that. I know there's great hygienists out there, not a reflection on hygienists. I just didn't feel comfortable that there wasn't objective criteria for that role as there is for dental assisting and dental hygienists. So in our job board, just the question about in the job board postings, how come we can't see the office and what their rate of pay is and things like that? We don't, you could see the rate of pay if the dental office, this is job board, not temping. So if you're looking to get hired and you're looking at our job board posting, you could see the hourly rate if they decide to put it in the description. And it's up to the office if they want to include, just like a classified ad. Maybe they put it in, maybe they don't put it in. But as I was we were building out the job board, and I was kind of surveying, interviewing dentists who were hiring, frustrations of the current solutions, all of those things, it was overwhelming that dental offices do prefer the opportunity to post anonymously for their shifts for a few reasons. One, if you're looking at the posting and you could call that office or contact that office right away, they don't necessarily want their receptionist inundated with calls all day about people who might be applying for the job or inquiring about the job and kind of taking up that time when they could be helping patients and things like that. And sometimes, admittedly, sometimes an office is looking to hire somebody for a role they have somebody for at that moment, and they don't really want that person knowing that they're hiring. So there's a mix of reasons, but that's kind of how it is, where we kind of weighed it. We do give, if you've ever applied on our job board, I think we give a few letters of the name of the office so that you can know that you're not applying to your own office by accident. If you're not happy at your current office and you're looking for a new job, that you're not sending in an application for your own job, for your own office. So it tells you the distance, and it tells you a few letters so you can say, okay, that's definitely not my office, kind of thing. That's a good question. Thanks, Simone. I'll answer that one in just a minute. Yeah, so the next question was just about our offices who are accepting unvaccinated temping hygienists. Do they accept antigen tests? So right now in our first version of addressing vaccinations, and of course subject to improvement and iteration, but that's not necessarily how we're approaching it. We're just saying, is it your office policy, your workplace policy, that everyone shows proof of fully vaccination? If it's yes, then you have to be able to provide it to book that shift. And if they say no, well, then anybody can book it. You can be vaccinated or unvaccinated, then you can go in and get that done. It's possible, and you're right. Maybe the next version of that says, no, we're okay with a antigen test within 20, something like that. We'll have to kind of wait to see how things unfold, what the feedback we're getting about it is, and where the pain points are that remain after we implement this one. But if it requires evolving and iterating on and improving, we'll be listening, and we'll make sure that we're responding. So just going back to a couple questions about employment. So it talked about insurance and malpractice and things like that. So that is within the scope of what the dental hygienist or dental assistant would be responsible for. And certainly at an offices have their workplace insurance and things like that. Benefits or incentives for those who have been using TempStars for a long time. Well, our Pro and Elite status membership offers some benefits in terms of the opportunity to offer higher hourly rates. You get a certificate of excellence that you can put on a resume and it says, I have an established and proven track record of reliability and professionalism, and you can include that in your resume. We're always thinking about more perks that we can add to it. Instabook. So right now, all the perks fall within how TempStars works for you. So right now, only our Pro and Elite status members have the ability to Instabook a shift. So if you're Pro and Elite status and a dental office posts a shift and their proposed rate is acceptable to you, you don't even have to send in an offer. You can say, bing, I want that, and it's booked. And so that is something that our Pro and Elite status members have access to as well. And this is coming out in our next release. And I touched on it, I think that Instagram Live with Irene from Tooth Life. We're going to be building in a little scheduling system where you'll be able to put in a little scheduling profile that says your days and availabilities and hours and maximum distance of driving and minimum shift length and what your hourly rate is. And it will allow you to get booked by a dentist who can say, oh, I need somebody for this time, bing, and you're booked. So it's a bit of a beta thing that we're going to be rolling out, and I'm sure there'll be different versions of it as we do, but that's another Pro and Elite status perk that we'll have coming out. But we were looking at, I think there's a perks company called Vengo or something like that, where we thought, oh, let's buy 100 memberships to Vengo, and it's community discounts at stores and movies and things like that. So we have been kind of talking about things like that. Adriana from Highlands Ranch, Colorado. I just saw that. I'm not sure, but I'll make sure that we follow up with you and make sure it's set up if you have any questions. Can one make a profession? Can you make a successful career, dental profession, by temping alone? Absolutely, and there's quite a few hygienists and assistants that do. Sorry, I was just looking at the comments down there. So yeah, you can, and depending where you are and how strong our presence is in that area. And so if I said, well, let's say our new launch area is Chicago. Well, it's kind of early days in Chicago. So can you quit your job and temp full time in Chicago using TempStars right now? Maybe not. But yes, as we grow and get stronger, and more people are using us and joining, 100% you can make a nice, flexible, empowered career out of temping. Office requires, we're going to put it on YouTube. There's a question just asking if we're going to put it on YouTube. How do we know if an office requires COVID-19 vaccination? Question about just a dental assistant who's worked for 2 years in a dental office in Ajax. I don't know the number offhand. There's always that scrolling wheel, and it depends on what the proposed rate. Yeah, Samantha, sorry. Your question about the instruments, I promise let me just answer this one and then I will address that one. So it depends. The rate, I'm going to say, let's just roughly say 24 to 30. Maybe it's a little bit higher than 30. Maybe it's a little lower than 24. But there's a range there that you pick when you're sending in an offer. So again, we don't dictate anybody to say, oh, you've been out for 2 years and you're assistant, here's your rate. That's not how it works. There's that flexibility of the open market with the guidelines and guardrails kind of thing. So Simone, the instruments. The best I can say is, if you go to an office and they have terrible instruments, first, if you don't want to work there again, then you can certainly say, I don't want to work there again. And that does matter. And the office is not notified. So that's an important thing. If you're giving any office negative feedback, you don't have to worry about it making its way to the office. We don't tell anyone, but we use it for our internal records, again, to manage our community. So if there's a consistent track record of an office getting bad feedback, for whatever reason, is it bad instruments, is it rude office manager, is it infection control, something like that. Well, infection control is slightly different that I'll touch on, but yeah, just let us know. And then if you do decide to give bad feedback and you want to fire off an email to our support team and just say, this office, the instruments are terrible. And if you want us to pass that on to the office and just say, look, we've had some feedback that your instruments are terrible, it could affect your ability to book temporary hygienists or assistants at your office, you might want to freshen those up if you want to make sure that you can consistently get good hygienists and assistants. So we can pass along that kind of a feedback. What I didn't say, and going back to kind of PPE and infection control, and this is something, again, how we listened and responded to COVID, and it really does matter. If somebody goes in, if a hygienist or assistant goes into the dental office and there's a violation of PPE protocols, infection control protocols, IPAC, that sort of thing, and the person has to leave because this is not up to standard, then that hygienist or assistant is entitled to that day's wage because they can't work in an unsafe environment. I can tell you, I don't know, I think that's happened once since in a year and a half, or since offices reopened after COVID. I think it's happened once. The overwhelming feedback is that dental offices are going above and beyond trying to make sure that they have a safe environment for the people who work there and for their patients. And we also have, if you're working at an office and you finish the shift, you get a little pop-up that says, would you endorse this office as having PPE and IPAC that meet or exceed the guidelines? And so if they do, you hit yes, and then everybody who works or is looking at shifts from that office afterwards sees the little badge and it says, oh, someone's worked there before, they've seen their PPE and IPAC protocols, and they endorse them, so that makes me feel better about going there, probably meeting the guidelines. And I don't feel bad about that in terms of making sure that the person gets paid for leaving, because first, they don't want to work in an environment that's not safe. Second, they're missing out on a day's pay. And third, if a dental office isn't following proper infection control protocols, they could have bigger problems, because anybody can report and we know this, anybody, a patient, a disgruntled employee, anybody in office can report an office and have a public health inspection. So it really is incumbent upon every dental office to make sure that they're following the proper infection control guidelines, because whether or not it's a temporary hygienist or assistant that goes in, or it's a patient that notices something, or maybe a hygienist or assistant or someone in the office quits and they're disgruntled. As a dental office, you've got to make sure that you're up to spec for the guidelines and code. Simone, the bad equipment, I don't really know what to say about that other than just you'd have to give them, just say, I don't want to work here again. Maybe it's a similar thing. If they have bad equipment, I guess that might be a subjective or objective thing. Because imagine you go into an office and they've had 20 shifts and they got a ton of 5-star ratings. People like going there. They're popular. They're getting good feedback, good comments. And then when you go and you say, I don't like the equipment here. Well, I wouldn't want to kick someone off or remove an office for that if they have a track record of people liking working there and that sort of thing. So I can tell you, we care about it and it matters. And please let our support team know if you go into an office and say, this place is a mess and it's a disaster and I can't work here anymore, their equipment was awful. Well, we can, like I said, we can provide that feedback. But I guess we'd just have to weigh it and take it into consideration. And about so that's another thing that we're building in, probably 4.1, release 4.1. So when you say, and we're going to be building this in for offices as well. So anybody that says, I don't want to work here again, or please don't book this hygienist or this dental assistant, we're going to have a little pop-up survey. And it'll just be like checkboxes in a spot where you can write stuff. So you might say, I don't want to work at this office again. The office manager was super rude. And then maybe you'd want to write some details. Or I don't want to work at this office again. The equipment was terrible. And so we'd get that feedback. It would go on the office's profile. And similarly with hygienists and assistants, if the office is, please don't send that person back. We'd say, well, were they unprofessional? Were they poorly skilled? Was their communication poor? What was going on? And there'd be a little spot that they can add some feedback. And again, sometimes it's just a bad match. Sometimes there's a trend and there's a pattern there that we need to look at and address. And we also consider if sometimes an office says, don't send that person back, and the person says, don't send me back to that office. Well, we also know people's profiles, so we can say, oh, this hygienist has completed 200 shifts. Everyone loves her or him and great feedback. And this office has completed 10 shifts and has got like 6 2-star reviews or something like that. We think, well, we kind of know who to believe here. So sometimes it's a judgment call, but we take all that stuff into consideration as well. There's just a question about thoughts on abuse of dentists. Yeah, there really is. Honestly, there's no place in the community of TempStars for dental offices that provide disrespectful, unprofessional, unsafe work environments. There's just no call for that. And so, if there's from an abuse, especially for us, it's not worth having an office on our membership who is providing consistently bad experiences and ruining it for people who want to have good temping experiences and things like that. Right, so I got that one, wondering about the statements, TempStars. Oh, there was just somebody was asking about our fulfillment rate, which it depends on the area overall. So pre-COVID, it was around 97, 98% overall. In post-COVID, it's dipped. I don't know the number offhand. Let's say it's in the mid to high 80s. But again, it kind of depends what area you're in and where we are in our growth in that area. So earlier on, the fulfillment rate's not as high, but we also monitor those things. And if we say, fulfillment rate in this area seems to be lower than average, we just work on building relationships and doing some marketing and some advertisement and promotion to get more hygienists or assistants on board in that area to help them get them joined on to boost up that fulfillment rate. So again, we really use a lot of data and statistics to know what's going on with our system. Like, we've really got a pulse on it, so we can say this specific area code, weirdly, their fulfillment rate is lower than every other postal code around them. And because you can do targeted digital marketing and all of those sorts of things, we know that area, we can do some extra marketing messages or build relationships with maybe a dental study club or a dental hygiene study club in the area, that sort of thing. So we do kind of keep the balance. At the same time, we don't want to necessarily overshoot promotions to hygienists and assistants in an area too much, because then hygienists and assistants say, hey, where are all the jobs on TempStars? And so then we promote to dental office and say, look how great TempStars is. So we kind of keep our membership balanced that way. Oh, yeah. So, Lisa, yeah, just about the idea of going to a shift or not being paid for the entire shift, that sort of thing. So we sort of have this short notice cancellation policy, but also a shortened shift thing, where if a dental office cancels the shift within 24 hours of it starting and the hygienist or assistant is unable to pick up a replacement shift, then the office pays 50% of that shift value minus the 30-minute lunch. So if it's an 8-hour shift and the office short notice cancels, it ends up being, you get paid 3.5 hours regardless. Even if you don't pick up any of the shift, you get 3.5 hours of pay to help offset that. If you show up for a shift and let's say the last 3 patients cancel and you're sent home early, well, the 50% of that amount gets paid out. So if your shift got shortened by the afternoon by 3 hours, then our policy is the office still pays for at least half of that time. So it's an hour and a half. So there's some there to help offset that. But again, we also watch for trends for offices doing that. And so if there's offices that are consistently shortening shifts or consistently short notice canceling, we remove them from our system. But the feedback matters, and we carefully keep track of all of that data and statistics. So we know, because 4,000 offices, we know who is providing those consistently great experiences of reliability, paying on time, all of those sorts of things. So we use that to manage our membership as well. I think that's kind of right on time. Wow, that went by fast. Oh, so yeah, I should show you this. Hot off the presses, Jen, our marketing director of growth marketing, and I worked on this. And you can't tell now, but if you go to the bio, and there's like a link tree link in there, and you'll be able to go to this and see it. But it's a neat chart that explains overall how the different categories of membership statuses work and how you earn them, and what would happen if you are down in limited status, and how you get out of temporary limited status back to active, and then pro and elite and things like that. So yeah, check that out, because I think it will clear up a lot of misconceptions. And again, it was one of the reasons I wanted to do this, was to talk about these things, because again, and maybe it's people's previous experience with agencies and services and things like that, there's sometimes a default cynicism or jadedness about it, to say, oh, they must be terrible people because of this thing. And so it's really on us that our system works fairly well and pretty fairly, but sometimes we don't communicate it as well as we could either. So thanks everyone for joining. I do want to do these on a regular, maybe every 3 months or something. Nobody wants to see my face that often. But maybe every 3 months we'll just collect a bunch of questions. Oh, the other thing I do want to do that will get organized, maybe not this year, but I want to do like a 3-person panel with me and then either an office manager or dentist who uses TempStars a lot, and then a hygienist or assistant who uses TempStars a lot, and have like a little 3-panel, me and these other 2 people, and have like a discussion, and like a professional and respectful discussion, but really to kind of capture the different perspectives, with me sort of maybe moderating it or introducing some questions or things like that. I think that'd be really valuable, because we'd also get great perspectives on ways we can improve our service that way as well. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure we'll put out an announcement once that gets organized, probably November, December. I don't think we'll be able to get it done this year, but it is something I want to get going, and maybe even evolve that into a little mini TempStars advisory board or things like that, and have discussion forums about that, just to make sure we're opening up the dialogue and keeping the communication open. So thanks, everyone. I'm going to stop this, and Jen, I hope I save it after I do it.